Hello, my name is Rashida Ramakrishnan and I am a 3-year breast cancer survivor from San Ramon, California. I'm originally from India and I'm sharing my story with you today so that you do not make the same mistakes I made. So I always went for my annual physicals and always came back with perfect results. And then I turned 40. So as per the requirement, I also went for my mammogram. Fortunately, it was negative. But for me, the experience was so painful, the compression plates really hurt. So for the next few years, when I went for my physical, I always found ways to avoid getting my mammogram done. And that was a mistake. So now let's fast forward 8 years. Now I'm 48 years old and my husband was between jobs, and this great, comforting health insurance plan that we had taken for granted all these years was about to disappear in another month. So I decided to schedule my mammogram before these benefits got withdrawn. Guess what happened this time? They found something suspicious. And after multiple trips to the radiology department, doing ultrasounds and a biopsy, they finally confirmed that I had breast cancer. And they had found this cancer in the right breast as well as in the lymph nodes. That at that time seemed like an overdose of information. Date of diagnosis, June 1, 2007. Why is this date important? Because it was the date we no longer had our original health plan and now we were on COBRA. That was funny. It was like carrying a golf umbrella for all these years, and now that it was actually raining, the umbrella had been taken away. Moral of the story, do not find excuses to avoid the mammogram. Actually, just the other day, I heard a really poor excuse. This woman said she was not scheduling her mammogram because she was afraid of the results. Come on, that is the worst excuse on the planet. Actually, it's stupid. So, my diagnosis about the breast cancer with the lymph node involvement, I just wanted to talk to you about the staging. Breast cancer staging ranges from 0 to 4. But because the cancer for me was already in the lymph nodes, I was no longer 0 or 1. I could be anywhere from 2 to 4. The treatment varies based on the staging. So now at this stage, it was important to determine whether I was in stages 2 or 3 or whether I was in stage 4. So I went for a PET scan and felt relieved that it was not stage 4. It was actually somewhere between 2 and 3. This meant that I could go for a super aggressive treatment and look forward to being in remission. That's being cancer-free. At this point, I was looking forward to brainstorming and discussing my issues with someone who would understand my pain. However, in certain communities, a breast cancer diagnosis leads to an environment of secrecy and embarrassment. Talking to your doctor is great, but remember, the doctor can only give you a theoretical perspective. So I emailed everybody in my address book if they knew of anyone who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And yes, most people in my address book are South Asian. Result, I got a lot of sympathy calls, with everyone very eager to help. But what I actually needed was someone who had been through a similar breast cancer experience as what I was going through right now. That person would have been a great help to me, but I found no one. So truly, it was my own strength and conviction and confidence in myself that I decided to go for a mastectomy instead of a lumpectomy And also I decided to not do the breast reconstruction. There were a lot of options, but this was the one I picked because at that time I wanted to focus on being cancer-free and not go for the cosmetics. I returned home from the mastectomy, and the post-surgical pathology report put me at stage 3. I think that was because of the number of lymph nodes that were now cancerous. So a quick recap. On that spectrum of breast cancer staging from 0 to 4, I was at stage 3. That can be pretty scary, but I was relieved that my previous decision about the mastectomy turned out to be the best decision. Now it was important to stay focused and to be ready to begin the super aggressive plan that my medical oncologist had planned for me. So I was put through 8 rounds of chemotherapy given every 2 weeks. It was very hard. I was too exhausted to drink the recommended amount of water every day and to go for my 30-minute walk every day. I wish now that I had. If you have been recently diagnosed with breast cancer, or if you know of a friend who has, please do not take this lightly. This is where you can be a good friend, just by being a walking buddy. So I'm going to share this terrible side effect that I had because of the chemo. They always talk about things like hair loss, nausea, fatigue, and then there is this thing called peripheral neuropathy. The doctor explained to me that peripheral neuropathy is when I would lose sensation in my hands and feet because this particular drug that was being given to me as part of the chemo, the drug is called Taxol, that would damage my sensory nerves. So in a way, I was prepared for it. Unfortunately though, my body wasn't able to cope with the intensity of the Taxol. So besides the sensory nerves being damaged, my motor nerves got damaged too. And I was unable to walk for 2 months. I was very confused at that time as to why I was unable to walk. And when I went to my oncologist explaining to him, he said Taxol does not affect the motor nerves, and he told me that what I was experiencing was a case of extreme fatigue. Finally, 3 months later, when I was a little more in control of my legs, I was able to schedule a visit to the neurologist, and he did some sort of an electrical impulse test and confirmed to me that my motor nerves had actually been damaged because of the chemo. So, at this stage, I was very angry at my oncologist because he had written it off as an extreme sense of fatigue. He made me feel like I was complaining too much, when in fact, I was actually being very brave. Later on, he told me that I had not described my symptoms clearly to him, though I know I had. He told me that I should be happy that I am now in remission. Happy that I was able to finish this aggressive course of treatment and I had put the cancer behind me.